All right, welcome to another episode of the Couch Coaches podcast where we talk about everything going on in sports. And one thing that the NBA playoffs has definitely given us is we seem to talk about one thing in the direction the series is going on Tuesday, and then by next Tuesday, it did the opposite of what we talked about, and then we're talking about how it just did the opposite of what we're talking about. Last Tuesday, we were predicting these series and how they were going to be good series, and we even had a prediction of the Indiana was going to definitely beat Boston, and here we are a week later, and it looks like we already have definitely one sweep, and it looks like it's going to be another sweep, and then we have a whole over a week before the finals. So, I guess it's just what what do you guys think with what we've seen? It did the exact opposite of what we thought. Deacon Hill, I'm going to start with you. Thoughts on the Boston series?
The Boston series, they swept the Pacers. The Pacers are a young team. They don't have that veteran presence that they Siakam. He's the veteran, but he's a big man. A big man always has to have somebody to actually control the tempo of the game and stuff like that, and get him the ball in the right spots and stuff like that. He tries to sometimes take over and get a little bit out of control and things like that. So I think they're just a young team. It's a young team, and Boston did what they had to do. It was a couple of close games. I mean, Jaylen Brown's saved them one time, that corner three that could have easily went to the Pacers that game. So but you got to give Boston the credit. They handled their business. They swept them. So yeah, that's just it is what it is. A lot of people were saying that Boston had the most easiest route to the final. That all these players were hurt. Giannis was hurt. And Embiid wasn't 100% and things like that. But and like they say, you play who's in front of you, and they played who was in front of them, and they took care of business. So you got to give them credit. And I know you didn't ask this question, but I'm going. I done been swayed. I'm going with Boston to win it all.
So even though they haven't been tested at all really in this playoffs, and they've only lost 2 games,
I'm going with Boston to win it all.
All right. So you liked what you saw enough that you're like, this is a team that can do it, or you don't like what you see in the West.
What I look like. I mean, Kyrie and help me with his name.
Luka Doncic.
Huh? Luka Doncic. They're Luka. They're the real deal. But I just think, but Jaylen Brown and Tatum are the real deal also. And I think Boston has more supporting those role players, supporting guys, or money. White. Everybody's talking about what's the old guy that just keeps knocking down threes and
Al Horford.
Hartford, yeah, those guys. I think those guys have been they're battle tested, and I think they're going to come through in the clutch. So I'm picking Boston. I'm gonna pull out my Charles Barkley guarantee.
Brother Bill, thoughts on the Celtics series, and then I guess moving forward with Dallas.
Yeah, I agree with Deacon Hill that Indiana, as a young team, their youth showed itself in critical situations, and their style of offense, even losing their star player, I think they didn't seem to have someone to control the flow of the game offensively with their possessions, and they became predictable to defend. But what was even more glaring to me was the number of times they gave up open threes to the Celtics. They just seemed like their defensive lapses showed against a Celtics team who is fairly predictable. The way, if it's not Jaylen Brown or I always forget his name,
Tatum
taking the shot, they move all around. And at the end, they get it to two guys who are going to be in the corner. Al Horford on one side, or Devin White on the other. I mean, you saw that for 4 straight games, and it just surprised me that they were never able to make that adjustment for game 3 and 4. 1 and 2, okay, you understand, but 3 and 4, I would have thought that they would have never seen that they made the adjustment. In the West, I've seen enough of Dallas and I've seen enough of Boston to think that although Boston has a better starting 5 than Dallas does, Kyrie and Luka, versus Tatum and Brown. I think they cancel each other out. But I'm convinced that defensively, the role players for Dallas, I think they're going to be ready for Boston. And I mean, we said before the playoffs started that the championship was going to come out of the West. I'm not. I said Denver, and someone has to beat them. I'm sticking with the West. I just think that if Dallas can sweep Minnesota, I mean, at some point you have to take notice of the way they're playing defensively. I picked Dallas in an upset. I think it'll take them 6 to do it, assuming they finish off Minnesota. If it's not tonight, they finish them off in game 5 or 6.
But it's the same thing that you said about the Pacers. The Minnesota's young. I mean, they're not playing. They don't play consistently at all. You're going to get Ant is going to get his. Towns. You don't know what are you going to get from him. Tonight he started out
nothing. You get nothing from him. That's all.
Well, he started out going to the basket instead of trying to settle for those threes, but then he starts getting in foul trouble. So that's the same thing I see. The same thing with the Pacers. They're just playing against a young team. Boston is not that team, so their defense is going to be tested way more against Boston than they are against Minnesota.
But Boston takes so many threes. I mean, they're easier to defend. Like I said, you guard the three, even if you let Tatum and Brown score their average. That's okay. It's always the others that you don't want to get going, because then everyone's in the flow. Then a team is harder to defend. It's easier to defend 2 or even 3 players than it is to defend all 5.
Who'd you call out? Horford and White, and then
Horford and White. Yeah, but I'm saying Horford's going to do one thing: shoot threes. What else is he got? I mean, they're not going to post him up. And if you post him up against Gaffer's going to send that stuff to the third row. Devin White, he's a handful because he can actually get his shot. He's a little bit more handleable. I just think that if Dallas plays to their strength and Boston plays to their strength, it'll be a close one. And then, like I said, Kyrie and Luka in the fourth quarter, I trust them. Fourth quarter close game more than I do Jaylen Brown and Tatum.
Yeah, to me, it's Kyrie and Luke. Like, I think they're obviously two very well built teams. They seem to be well coached. I think it will be a hard transition for the Celtics to go from a relatively easy last month into playing a team that had to go through some legitimate. I mean, granted, the Timberwolves are not doing what we thought the Timberwolves were going to be doing, but Dallas has kind of turned it on in the second half. I mean, like the last month of the season, where we even talked about it. Is Dallas a sleeper? Because they started playing defense, go, oh, it's a real team, because obviously offense is taken care of. Defense is really the only thing they had to kind of figure out. But man, yeah, that fourth quarter, Luka and Kyrie they're about as unstoppable of a dude. Like, they're going to get the points. So can the defense hold the Celtics enough that they don't get their points? Because Luka and Kyrie are going to get it, because that's when especially Kyrie, that's when he's been turning it on. Is in the fourth quarter when he needs to turn it on.
And the other thing we haven't talked about is the pressure, right? And the pressure, you say, yeah, either bursts pipes or it makes diamonds. I get that. But there's going to be so much pressure on the Celtics to win those first 2 games at home. And yes, they've had to deal with that in every round. I get it. But now you're at the finals, and they're playing against an opponent who, I don't want to say Dallas was playing with house money, but they didn't have the same level of expectations. I think they can play freer more often during the game than the Celtics can. We're just going to see. I'd be surprised if it didn't go 7. If it's going to go 6, I think it's because Dallas steals one and they close them out at home.
Well, you're talking about pressure. Dallas has been there. I mean, the Celtics, they already been to the finals. They already been to, they're tested. They just never crossed the finish line, but they've been there. So they shouldn't be. It shouldn't be no more pressure on them. They already been there, so they should be ready, locked and loaded, and ready to go this time around. They should be ready to go. And Drew Holiday, he's going to be a wild card. I love.
Agreed.
I mean, he's going to be a wild card. Kyrie, he's basically almost unstoppable. I love his game. I mean, he can shoot the 3, mid range, take it to the hole, finish with both hands, all of that. But Drew Holiday can get in his way and kind of neutralize him a little bit, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, you're right about Drew Holiday being the X factor, both offensively and defensively. I think of all the pickups, mean, that's showing itself for a team that needed that one player who can be physical on both ends of the court. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Celtics. I'm assuming the Celtics would go in not just because of seeding, but I'm sure the Celtics should go in as the favorite. I mean, they have a great team, and they've been the team you've been expecting to win for 3-4 years now. I mean, ever since kind of Tatum jumped up, and you're like, oh, he's great. They've been kind of expected to be this team. They should. I mean, and they don't seem to be having like the mental lapses that we would see them happening before, like where they would let the team just kind of hang around and then come back. I mean, they've lost 2 games. That's pretty wild.
I mean, and the thing I like about it is you said not hang around, but the Pacers, they've been there. Even the last game, they've been there the whole time. But Boston hasn't folded. They withstand the charge or whatever, and was able to pull it out. And that's what I'm liking about that also.
Yeah, yeah. And then so sticking with, obviously, I'm checking the score right now.
So I get 68-66, 4 minutes left in third quarter.
Yeah.
Minnesota needs to get a double-digit lead at some point. If they don't get a double-digit lead, I can just see Dallas pulling it out in the fourth quarter, and it'll be a wrap.
So kind of sticking with Dallas and more specifically Kyrie. To me, from a person who's not a Kyrie fan, it was a weird exit in Cleveland. You have a great team. I want to be the guy. Goes to Boston. Very weird in Boston. Signs a huge contract. Get me out of here. Goes to Brooklyn. Is taking time off because something happened in the Middle East and he's sad about it. He's like burning sage, and they're trying to get James Harden. I'm not going to say anything about like the vaccine stuff because it doesn't seem to be as crazy now as it did when he was doing it at the time. And then he goes to Dallas, and last year they don't even make the playoffs, and you're like, this dude is a team killer. And then nothing this year. You don't hear anything. He's not making any news. The team's, halfway through the season starts playing. I mean, he's always good on offense and stuff. The offense was always clicking pretty well. Defense starts playing. And it's like the Kyrie, what you thought you were getting from Kyrie back in Cleveland. And for me, somebody who is a critic of Kyrie, I'm like, I don't know, man. This kind of erases this like decade of kind of nonsense that we've gotten out of him, because he's doing the stuff on the court. He's not making headlines over stuff that shouldn't be making headlines. Does this change the narrative on Kyrie, or is it just me thinking it changes the narrative? Brother Bill, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I agree that it changed the narrative. And I think one of the major things that happened was, remember when he was at Cleveland, he didn't have to be the guy. LeBron was the guy. LeBron, all the press was LeBron, and it was like Batman and Robin. LeBron was Batman. Kyrie was Robin, and as great a shot maker, unbelievable shot maker as Kyrie was, it was always understood that the offense ran through LeBron, and Kyrie could get 30 plus points a night, no problem. Goes to Brooklyn. I'll throw out Boston because that was a different team back then, but goes to Brooklyn, and you would have thought with KD it would be a similar situation where KD is the guy, right, and they can kind of complement each other, and that just didn't work out. The difference I think now with Dallas is he's able to, and they were talking about this on TV on ESPN, how can be a similar type of a player in Dallas where what you're going to get with Luka. What you're going to get with from role players. And when they need Kyrie to get that bucket, he's going to get that bucket. It's a similar environment. So to me, it's that change of environment back to what worked when he was at Cleveland.
So just having him be an amazing number 2.
What's that?
Just having him be like an amazing number 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Or 1A, however you want to slice it. Yeah.
Deacon Hill.
I kind of agree with Brother Bill, but I think it's more he might be a number 2 far as the option on the floor, but I think he's more of a leader, he's more of a veteran now. When he was with LeBron, he was not that vocal. He wasn't the leader of that team. So like you said, he was that Robin. Now he's not really the Robin. He's in the locker room. I think they look more to him for his leadership and veteran experience and things like that. And I think that's paying off for him. And I also heard that, that he got married, he has a new child and stuff like that. So that kind of changes his whole priority and stuff like that. So he's more of a, more focused on what he wants to do with his life. So I think that has something to do with all that stuff you used to be hearing about him off the court. And as far as the narrative has changed, but as far as I think you got to win the chip though. You got to take it all the way home till we could say, okay, he did, that he went through the, far as all the nonsense stuff, I agree with all that, and he's definitely playing. But to say that he actually could be the leader, that leader of the team, they need to take it all the way and win the title. But as far as all the nonsense that he was going through, oh yeah, he's done. He's proven he's been excellent off the court this year.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, like that, and I didn't realize the marriage and the kid thing was recent, but I knew he had a kid recently.
Yeah.
And something they were talking about today is that Dallas fully embraced him, and I don't know, Boston, I think, was like kind of leaving that out is different because the team was different. Kyrie was in a different space because he was trying to be the dude. I don't think he really knew who he was, as far as a leader. And then what they were saying in Brooklyn was just, it's an owner that wants to make money, that wanted to sell tickets, and just brought people in and there was like no structural leadership. And then you have kind of KD's not a real leader, Harden's not a real leader, Kyrie's not like a real leader like that. And then when they go to Dallas, a very well-run organization. They fully embraced all his whatever he was doing. So when he's doing Ramadan or whatever, they're meal prepping and stuff for him. They're preparing, everything's kind of set up to help him be as comfortable as possible. And I think the combination of all those things has him. I mean, and to me, even if he doesn't win a chip, he's still playing so great. And he's just so mellow now. He's so quiet that I think that he's not annoying anymore. Like his greatness, he needs to win a chip for that greatness factor. And my goodness, how sweet would it be to beat Boston for that ring? I mean,
that's what I was gonna say. Assuming Dallas gets there, which do you think will be the bigger headline if Boston doesn't win or if Dallas doesn't win a championship?
I think Boston, because I think people have been waiting for Boston to win, and they keep falling short. I think Tatum will get crushed if they don't win.
Yeah. So, I like what Big Perk said today. It was talking about Kyrie and the way that Dallas embraced him, and he was saying when you got superstars, they get treated different. I think they said that they try to have him too structured in Brooklyn and stuff like that. He said when we had a superstar, if he's 20 minutes late or whatever, he named some sorry. He said he never was on time, but you knew what you was going to get on the floor. When he got on the floor, he was good. So you don't everybody's not treated equally. We want to always say that, but if those guys get a little bit of extra, privilege and things like that. So I think, like you said, they embraced him. They let him do his little thing, and he comes out there and shows up on the floor.
Yeah, I think Kawhi Leonard might be the king of special privileges.
No, not Kawhi. No,
not Kawhi. Makes you think of Allen Iverson. We say practice.
No. But he delivered. Kawhi would get all these things and then tell him 10 minutes before the game starts, I'm not going to play today.
Yeah, Kawhi is saying game. At least Iverson was saying practice. Kawhi's like game.
Right. Yeah, exactly. What you mean game? All right. Switching to football. This is a Niners issue, but we'll get the input.
Don't roll your eyes, Greg. It's okay. Come on.
So Brandon Aiyuk wants to get paid as much as Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is, I believe he's making like 30 plus a year. I believe or it's 30 a year. It's like 30 a year for 4 years. Personally, as a diehard Niners fan, Aiyuk may be a true number one receiver. To me, in our offense, we don't use him like one. We use him like a slot receiver. So to pay $30 million for somebody with 80 catches that we're using on, 10 yards in slot routes seems insane. And we could probably get a nice little haul for him. I would much rather do that. Deacon Hill, from an outsider's perspective, and I know you watch all the Niners games very carefully and you're paying attention to everything. If you were a Niners fan, would you want us to sign Brandon Aiyuk to $30 million a year? And as not a Niners fan, Would you like us to sign him for $30 million a year?
Well, I can't put myself as saying a Niner fan, so we're gonna just go on past that one. As
Right.
not a Niner fan, I wish you guys would sign him for anything that he wants. Just yeah, I think you should sign him for what he needs more, double that.
60 a year.
Break your cap, trade away a couple other players, and sign that man. Get him his money.
So if you were Joe, you got to rephrase the question. If you were the GM and the owner, and it was your team, knowing what you've gotten from Aiyuk in his career so far, would you pay him $30 million a year?
No, seriously, I'm gonna answer the question. I would agree with Joe. I watched him, and you know, at first it was supposed to be what's it, Debo? It's supposed to be Debo was supposed to be you guys' number one guy, and then he comes in, and then all of a sudden now he's your number one guy. I think they're pretty much similar players. You probably could stretch the field a little bit better than him, but like you said, you could throw somebody else in there and almost get that, you know, Debo, and put somebody opposite. You'll get that. Now, I would not break the bank for him. No,
Brother Bill.
No, you can't. I see you can, but to pay him, the cost to keep him, to me, is going to exceed the benefits that they get out of him, number one, and what they'll have to deal with next year and in 2026. So it's a financial decision, I think, to say if you're going to pay that kind of money, you're going to pay for it this year and next year. And if with a championship window as narrow as it is now with other teams, I can't see the Niners going to afford to do that, because you have to bend the offense to try to make up for what you are going to lose if you don't sign him. It's not impossible. It's going to take some effort, but again, you do that with players in the right situations and the right play calling. In a team that runs the ball more than they pass the ball anyways. You know, they run the ball to set up the pass. So I think offensively they can do enough where, you know, hopefully they can get a deal done. But if not, hey, understand, just business.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it and to me, it's more on how we use him than him. I mean, he may go someplace else and just absolutely crush it because they use a number one like a number one. Like paying somebody like Devontae Adams and using him like they use Devontae Adams. I mean, if the Raiders had a quarterback, but using him like if they use like in Green Bay, where they do stretch the field, where he does have like a 60-yard pass, where he is that guy. Yeah, use him. But to me, they don't even use him like that. Like if they could get somebody quick, he can do the same thing, because even the run game's setting up 15-yard passes. The run game's not setting up 40-yard passes. So we're using them in this like little box, which I think is also part of why we were so easy to defend in the playoffs, because it's just a small window. And I think it's the scheming. It's not the abilities of the players.
Is it, can he, I don't know if he has that type of speed as a number one. Can he stretch the field? Like you said, the way the routes that they run, is it the quarterback, or is it just a scheme? Why? I don't never see him stretching the field like that. So,
but I've never seen Kyle, as the Niners guys, really stretch the field really with anybody except for like a trick play with Kittle. He doesn't, and I don't know if I think it's more of a scheme thing than anything else.
Well, if part of it was, remember, you know, think about the quarterbacks that Kyle Shanahan has had to work with, right? And he had to work with quarterbacks who weren't accurate on the deep ball. And so he had to adjust his offense. I don't say adjust, but the offense reflected that. A lot of short to middle of the field passes, right? And so with Purdy now going into his third year, the question will be whether or not, you know, regardless of if Aiyuk is there or not, if Kyle feels confident enough in Purdy as a deep passer to have more deep passes. Over the course of a season, I could probably count on one hand the number of times that the ball's been thrown more than 40 yards downfield. And they've been able to methodically move the ball down the field.
And see, I don't see it as you're saying does he feel comfortable? No, it's what do I see? They got training camp, they got all. That's when you prove that you could do this stuff. So if you're not doing it in training camp and stuff, that's not your strong point. So it's not about whether I feel comfortable. No, that ain't what you do.
Well, Brock can throw the ball downfield. And we're going to see in, I don't say see in training camp, but I'm interested to see if the season reflects that in the play calling.
Why wouldn't you do that, Bill? Answer me this quick. If I have a player that could, that's just like if I have a player that can shoot threes and I say, don't shoot threes. If you can shoot threes, shoot threes. If you can throw the ball down the field, throw the ball down the field.
But
because we're forgetting that coverage has a little bit to do with it too, right? Because most of the teams most teams who defended the Niners, they played too deep safety, right? And dared the Niners to try to throw over the top, and they just most of the time they didn't. That's why things were short to intermediate. So you have to tip your hat to the defense. That's what I say. It would be interesting to see if they do some things, given the way defenses usually play them.
I think Kyle's a weird coach. I think Kyle has a scheme that he doesn't necessarily fit to the players he has. He fits his players to his scheme. So I don't know if he even utilizes guys in the best way that he can. Like Kittle's a ridiculous pass catching tight end. He uses him to block 90% of the time. Debo is a terrible run a streak, catch a ball over your shoulder wide receiver. He did that 2 times in the Super Bowl with him. Kyle's a weird guy. I think he has a very good offense, and I think it kind of doesn't matter who the players are. It's going to kind of automatically look the same. And I think that's a strength of his, and I think that's also a weakness of his, because I don't even know if he's even using Brandon Aiyuk in the best way possible. I mean, Brandon Aiyuk seems like a very quick, very fast guy. Does he have streaky straight speed? I don't know. He's very twitchy. He's very, very, quick moves and stuff, but he uses them on these little like 10-yard ins and 10-yard out passes. He's a
great route. Yeah, he's a great route runner, because if you look at some of the routes, when he on his like third or fourth step, he was cutting in and out and he was wide open. So his route running improved from early in his career. I'm talking about Aiyuk. Mm-hmm. So you're right, but it's to say you're gonna force players or make players fit your scheme. To me, that's a tough recipe, because they say, whatever their strength is, you want to play to whatever their strength is. So we'll just see. We'll see what the season looks like.
Yeah. So real quickly at the end, Bill Walton passed away. I am young enough to he's the quirky commentator guy. Like, that's how I remember him. You see old film, you hear these stories about just this insane college basketball player. I mean, they're putting him up there with like the second best collegiate college basketball player like of all time. Like he was on some streak where he was a part of a team that won like 88 games in a row. But I never got to watch him play. Deacon Hill, you said you remembered him playing in Portland. Just any thoughts or anything on the player Bill Walton before he got the injuries?
Like you say, in Portland, he put more Portland on the map. Before that, Portland, where's Portland? All of a sudden he goes to Portland, and he was dominant. He was a dominant player. I mean, in his post game, he could shoot the hook, I like that phrase he always said, "Throw it down, young man, throw it down." That's when he does his commentating, because when he played, he would throw it down. He got in, he post up, he would slam it down and stuff. And I was able to witness that, and they won a championship in Portland. But then the injuries caught up to him. He started getting foot injuries and stuff like that, and he became more of a role type player. I think he played for the Clippers a little bit, and then he ended up in Boston. They won another chip, but he was coming off the bench at that point. But in his prime in college and in his early days in the NBA, he was the most dominant center around. I mean, he was the man. So yeah, with the big beard and the curly long hair and everything like that, Bill Walton was the guy.
Yeah, that's cool. Brother Bill, you got anything from Bill Walton?
Yeah, I remember the time he was in Boston. I think 86 was his first year there. He was there 86 and 87, 88, right? So that year, Celtics won the championship. I remember him there, and again, he got 6th man of the year. More of a role player. I will give him the nod for, even though his contributions, statistics wise, wasn't extravagant, wasn't eye popping, because it didn't need to be, because the rest of the team they had. I mean, he's back with Robert Parrish, right? So you can't go wrong there. but I'll give him the nod over Emmanuel Carr, who was just a flag wavingest, non-contributor I'd ever seen from a Boston Celtics. So I'll give the nod over Emmanuel Carr. But I do remember him more when, like I said, when he was commentating on NBC with Marv Albert. And there was some memorable games, and just his style of when he would call a game. It was enjoyable, and it was pretty funny at times. Some Grateful Dead references he would make, because he was a big Grateful Dead fan. So yeah, I remember more for his kind of his broadcasting career, and yeah, just a pretty funny guy.
Yeah. All right, well, that is going to do it for us. Next week will be an interesting show because the finals won't even start until the 6th. So we're I have some topics in the back of my head to kind of break out that really don't have anything what's going on right now, but it'll be something to carry us until we get the.
Whenever you don't have anything, we can just talk about the Raiders.
That's true.
And your
only 6 losses.
You can do it the whole show and talk about the Raiders. I'm game. That'll work. Let's make sure James is here.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, and this will be the time we can invite my son Billy on. Greg, you're telling me we should have Billy on one time? We put him on as a guest. He can talk Raiders.
Raiders.
I don't know if he'll like it, but he can talk Raiders.
At least I like his. He's more subjective than you. You're biased. So yeah, we can have him.
That would be fun. The roast of the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, we could do that. All right, guys. We'll see you next Tuesday for a very interesting show, and it's gonna be Dallas, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
All right.
Okay. All right, guys. See you guys next week.
All right.